Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Kovac Enterprises. In this episode, I just want to quickly go over some of the tools of the trade that I use for filing down kits that have a lot of seam work to do. My basic tools, as you see in front of you, basically is using a hobby knife here, and I save some of my old hobby blades for scraping as well. And then, of course, I just use a dry brush to remove any of the excess shavings from the seam work itself. And then, of course, I use some sanding sticks, as you see here. And since working with T-Rex, most of his body parts have a roundness to them, so I kind of chose this particular metal file. It's I believe this is kind of like a rat's tail. It's rounded on all sides, just to follow the contours of the shape of the parts as I'm taking care of the seams. As you can see here, we have the tail of T-Rex on display right here, which measures a little less than 8 inches here. But as you can see, it originally was 2 halves. Basically what I do is I use the Testors liquid cement. This is one particular style that I use right here, product. And I give it a good coating of some glue when I put these 2 halves together, so that it actually squeezes through the seam work while we're putting it together. And once that's done, I let it cure overnight. And then, of course, the next day I come back and I start whittling away the cured glue along the seam work. Since this has some great looking detail along the seam line, which kind of starts from here all the way down to the end of the tail, I want to make sure I follow the contours of the scale of the skin, so I still have some detail left over once I try to hide the seam work as much as possible. So basically that's my attempt at trying to make the seams as invisible as possible when it comes to the next step in the prep work, which is putting the primer on and everything like that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move this stuff out of the way here real quick, and we'll go over some of the parts that I've put together. Now I have put down glued most of the components together from head to tail, and we'll go ahead and start. Speaking of head, this is actually the head and neck of T-Rex here, and we went ahead and if you recall, we had some mold lines right between his eyes here, more in like a circle pattern. So once again, I used my little number 11 used blade here, and I meticulously started whittling away the mold lines down to the detail part as best as I can on that. We also had some slight seam work running down the snout of his nose, and of course the back of his neck going down the line here. So like I said, I just basically scraped away each individual contour of his neck best I could, and tried to make the seam line disappear, and mold line as well, because this is actually one piece, molded piece. Once that was done, we went ahead and attached the upper mouth with the teeth to the inside of his head. So we got that all squared away. So basically right now his head is done. Next up is the lower jaw. We also went ahead and glued in the lower mouth as well, as you can see here. Kind of turn around. So that is done. Next up is the actual body itself. We went ahead and glued 2 halves together, and again we will be going down this seam line here and doing our best to hide the seam with the filing and scraping away to you know, make it invisible as much as possible. So there's his two halves, all nice and glued. There you go. So this is going to be his underbelly here, and his two front arms are going to be on either side here, and then the legs go right here. So there you go. There's the body all done up. And speaking of legs, we have our completed legs. Again, all these parts were half parts that were put together to make a whole unit for each component. So there's his leg, and of course, again, the dreaded seam line going all the way down the line you see here. So we're going to meticulously work on that to clean it up a little bit. And of course, any gaps, we'll go ahead and possibly use some Vallejo white putty on that and take care of it as well. So, and then we also have our two arms. They're pretty much the same, so I'll just show you one. So again, these were originally two halves. We glued them up real nice, and the actual seam work was right here. You can see I've actually done some cleanup on that as far as filing down and try to get as smooth as possible. So there you go. There's that on either side. And then we have his right and left foot claws, which you see right here. And there were some mold lines going along the sides of either of the foot claws there. We went ahead and cleaned that up as well using my little number 11 blade on that. So those are all nicely cleaned up as well. And then of course we have the claws for the feet. A little bit of flashing around the toes and stuff like that, but we went ahead and cleaned that up as well. So that is all done. Of course, we have two of those. So basically, that's where we're at right now with this build in this episode. Like I said, we'll be spending some time here getting everything filed down and ready to go. And for our next update, what we'll probably end up doing once I get while I got here, before I glue the upper head and neck to the lower jaw with the upper and lower mouth, probably go ahead and take advantage and go ahead and end up painting his mouth up real nice. Because it's going to be hard to kind of get into the mouth if you glue them all together to make it one complete head. So we're going to go ahead and probably end up doing that as well. So there you go. And that's about it right now. So like I said, we'll be moving along and moving forward with this. So stay tuned for the next segment in this series for the Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex. I hope everybody has a good weekend, and we will catch you on the next video. Till then, so long. Bye.